Welcome back to another episode of the Pit Lane Yappers. I'm Mox.
And I'm Rosie, and this is the first race of 2025.
It's kind of crazy.
In Australia.
For the first time, I think in 10 years, they said?
Something like
5,
that.
something like that. Finally back in Oz. Okay, FP1. The first thing, before anyone got on track, they were all leaving the pit lanes and their garages, and Liam Lawson almost took out Charles Leclerc.
Listen, that man is on thin ice anyway.
I was like, of course. They were like, ooh, a Red Bull almost took out a Ferrari. And I was like, well, it wasn't Charles. I mean, it wasn't Max.
But
I thought it was going to be Lewis and Liam, but it was Liam and Charles.
Max would never disrespect Charles like that.
Also, they said there were modifications to turn 6 and turn 7 because that's where the George crash was. That's where Fernando crashed in Australia in the McLaren a few years back. Let me tell you, no modifications helped.
Also, before we really get into the weekend, if you follow our socials, you will have seen already, but it was announced this weekend that Oscar Piastri has just signed a bumper contract with McLaren until the end of the decade. So sorry to everyone who does not like neon orange. We are stuck with it for the foreseeable.
He did sign the contract, but I will say, unlike most sports, he can break it and McLaren can break it. They probably won't. The only person who might is Oscar, and I highly doubt Oscar will break that. But end of the decade, crazy.
Long time.
But anyways, back to FP1. Liam hit the wall.
Yes,
like,
he did.
His first time out hit the wall.
So did Ollie Behrman.
Oh.
Which was a red flag.
The rookies were really struggling because also Jack went into the gravel, dragged it completely on the track, and they had to red flag the session because of it.
Yeah.
The only two rookies that kind of were killing it were Kimi and Isaac.
Yeah, like, I was going to say the whole weekend, but we'll get there. Yeah, Ollie crashed because he had no grip.
Yeah.
And then Lewis, his Ferrari was smoking, which, to all the new Ferrari Lewis fans,
that's not shocking.
Nothing special. Don't worry about it.
Also, I will say, as much as Isaac was really good on track, before he got out, he did overshoot his turn and hit the pit wall. And I don't know if you saw everybody on that pit wall, they went, because he just came right at them.
Must be hard.
I'm like, that is terrifying. But before Sunday, Mercedes was not thriving. The first radio message from Mercedes the first message Mercedes got was George saying, the car's too hot. Nothing new, by the way, but really? We haven't figured this out?
You had 3 months to sort out the heating issue.
Yeah. But, Williams was cooking. I don't know what they put into that car, but listen, I was expecting Williams to be somewhat good because they have Carlos, who was in one of the top cars, coming and saying this is what we should do. Not saying Alex wasn't doing it, but Alex had a Red Bull compared to Max Verstappen, and they gave him nothing. So he has nothing really to go off of. Yeah. Carlos does, but I was not expecting them to be this good this quickly.
No. Especially compared to the Haas, who were looking good at the end of last season. And maybe that's testament to Kevin Magnussen and Nico Hülkenberg, because
we'll get there.
The Haas It's
I
looking a bit
also though
cocky.
Yeah, but I also feel like Haas, it's kind of like McLaren the past few years where they kind of got to get their feet moving
Yeah.
before they figure it out. And I feel like with two new drivers, they really are like, okay, how do you like your car? And Esteban's like, I had an Alpine. I
Yeah.
don't know. And Ollie goes, this is my first year. Like, they don't have somebody really bringing in, like, this is what I like, this is what we should do. Ocon can do it, but I mean, Alpine probably didn't listen to him all that much. So, like,
Well, he was probably like, listen, I had an Alpine and some generational beef with my teammate. So can we
yeah.
move on,
Um,
please?
but uh for Fernando, everyone, we need to have a chat about Aston Martin. I think we figured it out. Fernando was P5 for the longest time, which, okay, I understand it's not that impressive. Okay, I understand. For most people, it's not that impressive. Aston Martin P5, that's like winning the championship for us, okay?
The bar is low. It's almost in hell, even.
Okay, yes, but it's fine. I will say Alonso did finish P8, but it's fine because that's still better than P18 where we used to finish. Anyways, um and I will say, so Hajar was cooking. So was Yuki, but especially in FP1, Hajar was cooking. He was like, "Okay, you want me to outdo Liam Lawson? I'm on it." And he did it.
As he should.
Did you also it's after qualifying, never mind. Oh, anyways. I will say
Okay.
Liam Lawson finished 16th and Max Verstappen finished 5th. I really thought Red Bull said, "Oh, we're getting the best driver for Max Verstappen to have as a teammate."
Something tells me that might be a 5'3" Japanese man.
Yep. It's fine. They'll never put him in the car. Yuki could literally win the championship and Red Bull wouldn't put him in the car. Also, this is kind of like what everyone was saying, but it is kind of funny because it was just Max at the top and then it was the V Carbs and then it was Lawson. I feel like they put their 2023 Red Bull and gave it to V Carb. Like, V Carb was cooking.
Fast.
Like, and I know everyone's like, okay, sorry, it's Racing Bulls now. Anyways, I know everyone was like kind of trashing them, me too, because their merch was like, oh, we're the team that everybody told you not to worry about. And I was like, yeah, we're not worried. I'm a little concerned.
Also,
As an Aston Martin girly, I'm a little worried now. I am worried about you. I think that's it for FP1.
yeah, nothing
Nothing
like
major except Ollie Behrman.
Lando was fastest in FP1.
Yeah. Then Carlos.
And then
which
Charles
was crazy. So then we're on to FP2. Once again, pit lane incident.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson was at the front of the pit lane, and Lando Norris was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go. And went onto the grass to overtake Lawson. Which, listen, I'm not here to defend Lawson, but I am on Liam Lawson's side this time.
Lots of people in the gravel in this practice session. Bear in mind, okay, I will admit to the audience that I did sleep during this because it was like 4 a.m. I'm not waking up for practice. I woke up for the race, not for practice though.
Anyways, going on. Hulkenberg also had a part of his fire extinguisher in his car.
Yeah, no comment.
He's like, I have to pit because I have the pin of the fire extinguisher. I was like, time out. Why is the pin out of the fire extinguisher? Did we have a fire?
Yeah, must have done.
I feel kind of bad for Hulkenberg because he was in a really good car, and then they were like, okay, anyways, we're dropping you. Now he's in a Sauber, but I will say, the race, kind of proud.
Poor man's gone back to a Sauber.
Yeah. I will also say Lewis was complaining about the understeer still, and the only thing his engineer said was copy.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. Welcome to Ferrari. It only gets worse from here on out. I don't know what to tell you.
You want to know who was cooking though? It wasn't Ferrari, unfortunately. But it was Williams again and Aston Martin again. The two people we really didn't expect, but
we do have to mention that Ollie did not have.
Yeah,
No, he was not in FP2
because Haas was trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And they did for FP3, but we'll get there. I will also say I'm so sorry, but Oscar was impeding Carlos. Oscar was in the middle of the track.
Who cares?
I will say, I do think, I mean, it was a blind corner, so I do think the Williams wall should have told Carlos Oscar is on track, but I do think Oscar should have gotten a blue flag where it was nowhere in sight.
Who cares? Who cares?
But yeah, once again, gravel is the enemy. This is the pinnacle of motorsport, and the cars can't go over gravel.
Yeah.
My car, my 2011 Toyota, can go over gravel.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I will also say, going back to Ferrari, both of them did not look comfortable in the car. They looked, Charles looked a little more comfortable in like qualifying, but for FP2, I was like, ooh,
I don't understand, because he had the biggest of smiles in pre-season testing. There were multiple letters on his Instagram captions. There were emojis. It looked...
I don't know if it's just... Well, they were bringing upgrades, so maybe it was the upgrades. He was like, whoa, these did not work. But I do feel like those upgrades weren't that big of an upgrade, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I just don't...
But Yuki went P1 for a long time. Speaking of cooking, when we were not expecting it, Yuki really said, I have a point to prove. And that point is I deserved that second Red Bull seat. And he's proven it. I mean, he proved it last year too. So like, that's it for FP2 that I have.
Yeah, that's all I've got as well.
All right. FP3. Haas fixed Ollie's car, only for Ollie to crash again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's giving Williams mechanics last year.
I feel so bad for Ollie, because I do feel like he was kind of the most watched rookie, in the sense of like everybody was rooting for him, and he did so well in the Haas and the Ferrari last year that they were like, oh my gosh, this rookie is going to take this car and it's going to be an amazing driver, and he keeps crashing.
Yeah, and it's only, what, day 2?
Like, I feel awful.
So it's a long day, isn't it?
I'm just gonna say that he got all of his bad luck out this race, and for the rest of the season, he's gonna be a little bit better. I did say that about Williams last year, so... But, we also had another car issue, this time with a Red Bull. Liam Lawson had a power unit issue.
Yeah, he did. So he pulled in after only 2 laps.
Yeah. I really liked his audio, his radio, where he was like, so what's going on with the car? And I was like, Max didn't have that issue. Thank God. Max will have that issue, though.
I quite power unit issue on day 2 of the season is...
That's a Ferrari move.
Hey! Hey!
Sorry, but it is.
Ferrari move is to use up all your power units, and then before the most important race of the season, get a 10-place penalty for it.
That's true. I will say, as much as Liam Lawson was struggling that session and only got 2 laps in, Max Verstappen was flying.
Yeah.
Flying. Thank you very much, Max Verstappen. I love you very much. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be a good weekend. That's where it stopped. But anyways. Charles was also complaining. This was like the session for complaints. Charles was complaining about the car. I don't even remember what it was. He just said the car just doesn't feel good. We need to have a chat. That's expected though. Like that's not like, oh my gosh, Charles is complaining about the car. Like that's expected from Ferrari. Unfortunately.
The fall from grace is
The fall from grace. Girl. They were never in grace to begin with.
Yes, they were.
Anyways, the last note I have is Kimi Antonelli. I misjudged you. I have to say it.
Fast.
He kept up, and I really was not expecting, out of every single rookie, I was expecting Kimi to struggle the most with keeping up with George.
The least experience.
He had literally 1 season of F2. I was like, okay, this guy like is not going anywhere.
And like, I just don't know. He's so young.
And you know what? Kudos to Total Wolf. As much as that pains me to say, Kimi Antonelli seemed to be the right choice. I would have loved Carlos. I just think Carlos him and George would have clashed.
Especially if they're both directors now as well, I think. There's only
I just
so
feel like
much time you can...
You know, not saying they aren't good friends. Sometimes friends just can't work together.
Yeah.
Mercedes. Anyways. That's all I have for FP3.
Quali?
2? 3. We're on 3. Okay. Quali. Fernando Alonso, I love you dearly. Lando finally went out. Like from the garage, not got out, everybody. He finally got out of the garage and he immediately went into the gravel. And I was like, uh-oh, this is not boding well for McLaren. And he still went the fastest in Q1. Ollie did not get out either. We have to say that. After he crashed, they had to fix it. They didn't fix it in time.
Give mechanics a raise, man.
They don't have any money to give them a raise, so... I will say, Jack Doohan was cooking. And I was like, all right, finally, thank God. And he did get to Q2. So he was cooking. He was cooking. Max also had a drinking problem, not in that way, but like he was like, there is a flood in my helmet. Well, what is going on? And I go, it's probably the drink. Thanks.
Well, he wouldn't be the only one. We'll get to that.
Also, Kimi was having an issue. I don't know if it was the car, it was him. He kept sliding everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
And then he like lost power. It seemed like a car issue, but it could easily, he was hitting the wrong buttons. I don't blame him. I probably would be hitting the wrong buttons too, but he was having an issue.
Well, I mean, when we did the F1 simulator thing,
he couldn't even get out of the. When we sat upside down, I just like, excuse me, you told me to press this button. It's not working. But there was a yellow flag for Lawson.
Oh,
for Lawson, he went into the gravel, and he dragged it onto the track, so they had to yellow flag so they could sweep it off. And also Kimi finally went back to the pits. They did something. His car then started sparking. Mercedes, what? Have we learned nothing?
No, clearly.
The poor kid. But I also will say, F1 F1 kind of chose violence for this season because why were they constantly showing Yuki's speed versus Liam Lawson's speed?
Well,
And mind you, Yuki was faster.
mind you, that's not surprising. Although
Yeah.
I would
Also,
like to bring up right now that the new graphics are fucking ugly.
oh, so bad. Also, why are we not showing times? What am I supposed? I'm paying to be shown times.
What?
I'm not supposed to
What?
have to pull out my phone to look at times.
Why
Anyway.
are there 4 different fonts on the graphics?
Why are their faces so big?
Formula One has just paid for Canva Pro, and my god, are they gonna use Canva Pro?
I can't judge. I did too, but let me tell you, I don't put 4 fonts. But anyways, I will say, speaking of VCarb, both VCarbs outqualified Liam Lawson.
No comment.
I will also say, speaking of the rookies, Gabriel Bortoleto outqualified his teammate in the first qualifying session of the first race of his first season.
Yeah, which is a little bit embarrassing for Hulkenberg.
And he also pulled it to Q2.
Considering Hulkenberg is a veteran driver these days.
Anyways, I will say, I was expecting Gabby to do better than Hulkenberg. I just wasn't expecting it so soon.
Yeah.
The people that were out for for Q1 was Ollie Behrman, because he obviously didn't race. Esteban Ocon.
So bye-bye Haas.
Liam Lawson.
No comment.
Nico Hulkenberg.
And Kimi Antonelli.
But that was also because his car was sparking. But I will say that was like the one time I was like, wow, he's not keeping up with George.
There's only I would really say there was only 2 rookies out in Q1 because Liam, this is his 12th Grand Prix. I don't think he can
counting
pass
him a rookie.
Yeah, sorry.
But can I also say, going back to Gabriel Bortoleto, Helmut Marko was asked about Gabriel Bortoleto in an interview. Why people are still asking him for an opinion, I don't know. But he basically was like, it doesn't really matter. He's a B-grade driver. And then Gabriel Bortoleto went, okay, and outqualified his veteran teammate and Liam Lawson. And Fernando Alonso went, I don't know, time speak faster than words.
Well, yeah, he's not wrong. Q1.
Q2.
Q2. Out in Q2 was...
I've got comments.
Oh.
I will say I have some things to pick out about the commentators. If one more person says, yeah, this is where Alonso created the crash for George. George Russell himself said Fernando Alonso was not at fault.
So why would it be Fernando's fault in the first place?
Because he was right in front and George was in a slipstream. Yeah, but that's not Alonso's fault. Anyway, Lewis had to use another set of tires so he could make it into Q2. So he had one less tire than everyone else on the field at the moment. But he made it into Q2. And then we have track times deleted because every single person went off on turn 6. So whatever they did to modify turn 6 didn't work.
Yeah.
Didn't work. But then this is also when Lewis somehow ended up facing the wrong way.
Yeah.
Still don't understand how it happened. I watched the replay. They watched the replay. That's all I have. So the people who were out were Bortoleto,
Doohan,
Jack Doohan,
both Aston Martins, and Hajar as well. Who is my adopted rookie? I've decided.
Yeah, Isaac and Ollie are gonna be my two
Like,
rookies.
that is my child.
VCarb really knows how to do PR because let me tell you, their PR has moved me.
Yeah.
But anyways, Q3, Charles and George were both marked for impeding each other. It was Charles's fault.
Who cares? Who cares? He's
Um,
innocent.
Lewis was also really struggling in this session. And I don't mean to keep highlighting it, but I will say
I'll be safe for real.
everybody was expecting him to do so well in Ferrari immediately, and everybody else that was a Ferrari fan before Lewis came was like, that's not going to happen. He's not magic. He's not going to just touch the car and it's going to be good.
Because Lewis fans just know how good Lewis is as a driver, which is good. But I'm not disputing that. What they don't know is what the absolute
how bad Ferrari is.
yeah, the shithousery that Ferrari is, and what everybody else doesn't understand is that how good Charles is to make it seem like a non-issue.
I also will say, Lewis Hamilton fans are like, thank God we're leaving leaving Mercedes. Like they never listened to Lewis. We'll get there, but let me tell you, Ferrari doesn't listen to Lewis either. But anyways, Lando did a flying lap and it was amazing. And then his time was deleted. And so then he was like, oh shoot. He was scrambling to get pole. And Oscar was like, this is my time. And Oscar got pole for a sole 30 seconds. And the cheering for Oscar Piastri. And then Lando Norris came and took it. And it was a McLaren front row lockout.
And there was less than a tenth of a second. I had that shit.
Did you see the time difference between both McLarens and Max?
Yes, I don't want to bring it up.
But because there was such a big time difference, and it doesn't seem, it was literally like half a second.
But that's a long time.
If you see it like on a video or in person, it's long. It's crazy long. And I will say that got people, aka Christian Horner, to say, okay, everybody, analyze their onboards. And multiple teams found that basically McLaren has a mini DRS even when DRS is not activated, which I'm not saying is illegal because it's not. There's no technical, at least from what I can tell in the research I've done,
think
really a technical thing that says you can't do it. However, the FIA has now
directive for this race, but from China onwards, there's going to be a new technical directive that says the rear wing can't be more than a half a centimeter more than what it or half a millimeter more than what it already is.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not very technical, so I don't.
So apparently, McLaren's is in compliance with the 2 millimeters. There is able to be 2 millimeters of space. However, teams haven't done that, and they've brought it to the FIA's attention. It can help with DRS, which I don't know. Does it really? I don't know. I'm not a car builder. I'm not an engineer. I don't know. But they upgraded it. They said when 75 kilograms of load is applied to the rear wing, which is basically if they're driving, the slot gap must not vary by more than half a millimeter instead of 2 millimeters.
I think the issue is that last season, the FIA said that's illegal, and then McLaren
they have said it.
Yeah, McLaren said okay, and then
I just don't understand.
They've essentially done the same thing again and made the FIA look like idiots.
I think they should stay consistent, and that's the whole issue with the stewards changing every single session and every single race. I just stay consistent. But that moves us on to the race. And it was a wet one.
Very wet.
It was a monsoon, actually. So much so, F3, F2, and Porsche Cup were cancelled.
To be British, it absolutely fucking pissed it down.
It's crazy how much rain was on that freaking track. And they were like, we're gonna delay it. They didn't delay it, but they were like, okay, we're gonna do a rolling start. No, we're gonna do a standing start. It stopped raining, so they were like, okay, we're gonna do a standing start. However, there was an ocean on the track still. Like, if you saw it, you would know what I'm talking about. There was so much standing water, and everyone's like, that's just not safe to start standing. But they went for a formation. They went for the formation lap, and similar to Lance Stroll in Brazil 2024, Isaac Hadjar lost control and went into the wall.
I have never.
I
was so sad.
I felt so bad. Oh, we forgot to say that Liam Lawson and Ollie Behrman started from the pit lane.
Yes, but
they dodged a bullet in that one.
I have never been so devastated.
And they showed crying, and I was like, stop putting the camera in his face. He has his race.
And then Lewis's dad went and hugged him, and like Lewis's Isaac's like
everyone's been there. Everyone's been there. Never lose hope for it. And then Helmut Marko. I should have coughed harder.
But apparently, Anthony Hamilton said, "Oh, I felt for him like a father."
Shanghai, please be kind to Isaac Hadjar. I don't care who else you take out. Yes, I do, but take out anyone else besides Alonso.
Or Oscar.
But anyways, so that got an aborted start. Unlike Brazil, everybody knew what they were doing, so they stayed put.
Yeah.
And then they had to get the track cleared, so it took a second, and then they were like, okay, we're going to do a formation lap, and we are standing. We are doing a standing start. And I was like, okay, that's great.
Certainly interesting.
Yeah. So
and it was all okay right until turn 1. I
remember what turn 1 it was.
Jack Doohan.
Oh.
So we had our first crash, and it was our home favourite. It was one of 2 Australians on the track. It looked pretty bad, I can't lie.
I feel so bad for him.
Yeah.
Because he has so much pressure on his shoulders, because he knows in 5 races, if he doesn't prove himself, he's going to be replaced by Franco Colapinto. And even if he does prove himself, he might still be replaced. So, yeah. But what I will say is I really feel like they can't blame him, because it was so wet that there was...
Somebody was bound to go out in turn 1. And it's just tough luck that it was doing.
So that was 2 rookies. We're down to 2. Ollie and Gabriel Bortoleto.
Also in turn 1, Lando kept his lead. Max overtook Oscar and Charles.
Okay, did you see his onboard?
No.
Max? Do you know that video that came out of NASCAR, and he's like, I'm just gonna put my foot to the pedal, and either I see the finish line or see God? That was Max. Put the pedal to the metal and went, okay, I'm gonna do it. And he went out on the outside of Oscar.
And Charles was up 2 in turn 1.
Yeah.
And then
So was somebody else. Was it
Doohan,
Hulkenberg?
I don't know. And then
Hulkenberg?
Doohan
I think
crashed.
Hulkenberg was up to like 8. Everyone's like, wait, where did that come from?
Yeah, and then Doohan crashed, and that brought out the first safety car of the season.
I have no words other than that safety car better win the drivers' championship at the point of how many times it came out this race.
And then the next DNF was under the safety car, and it was Carlos Sainz at turn 5. But that was apparently a car issue.
That was a car issue. He just lost power.
Yeah.
Williams has said it. He lost power. Like, I was like, how was it short circuited? Like, I don't understand how these cars just lose power. And that I would say that for anyone, by the way. This is not like, oh, I adore Carlos. What the heck? I would say that. Yeah.
But Vegas formation lap, my least favorite horror story.
But yeah, don't know where that came from. He sounded so sad. He's like, what happened? I just lost control. But I will say, Carlos Sainz, instead of going to be like just sitting in his room or watching in the garage, he did help with the strategy somewhat. It wasn't just everyone was like, oh my gosh, Carlos is so genius. Like, he is the reason Alex Albon finished in the points. I was like, no. He did help, but it's not just him.
I think the issue is, but it's not the issue. Carlos Sainz read Ferrari like a book.
Yeah.
Not that was hard if you've been paying attention.
Okay, can I tell you when? No, it's actually at the end of the race. I'll talk about it later.
But like, he knew they were gonna fuck both of them over. It was just a matter of when.
Not if, when. But I will say, it is kind of nice to know that Williams is taking in his experience. Not instruction, but his experience and his suggestions and seeing like, okay, does that work? Does it not? Because I feel like Ferrari feels like they know everything, and even if Charles helps Lewis or Lewis helps Charles, they're like, yeah, we got it. Which brings me to the Lewis radio. I
know we got rid of points for fastest lap. I think we should bring in points for funniest radio, and this race does in fact go to Charles.
But okay, before the Charles radio, can we just for his engineer, Lewis's engineer was like, press the C button or whatever, like for this, or press the A button for this, and Lewis just didn't reply. Mind you, he's driving at like 180 something miles per hour. No offense, I'm not going to pay attention if somebody tells me to press this button or this button. I'm not. I'm going to focus on not crashing. And Ferrari kept going. It's like, press this button for the overtake, press the overtake button. And Lewis was like, stop. I know what I'm doing. Stop talking. And guess what? They didn't listen.
Both Ferrari drivers were absolutely fucking sick of their engineers. Both of them were like, shut up, stop talking, too much information.
Charles's radio about the water, he was like, we have water in my car, I don't know what it is. And Brian was like, okay, it's probably the water. Wow.
And then Charles was
hired for that? I could do that. Ferrari, hire me.
And then Charles was like, let's add that to the words of wisdom. Sassy man apocalypse is back.
But I will say, right after the safety car, I'm pretty sure it's when Oscar overtook Max again.
Yes, it is. I do have that here.
And then on the pit wall, F1 TV went to the pit wall and said, Zach Brown, what are we doing? How is it are you going to let them race? Are you going to do team orders, papaya rules? What are you going to do? And he goes, we're going to let them race. Not even a minute later, they went, Oscar, please hold position.
It was like 5 a.m. for me at this point. I have never felt such rage.
I will say, I read an interview. I think it was Zach Brown was interviewed after the race about it, because literally every single person who was commentating was like, didn't he just say they were going to go racing? What is this? Is this Lando begged not to have this? Did Oscar say, I don't really want to race? Like, what is going on? And Zach Brown was like, we had traffic coming up and we didn't want for them to either lose 1-2 or bring out the safety car, which I get it. I do get it. I cannot believe I'm defending McLaren, but I do understand that. But when you go onto a interview and say, we're going to let him race, and 2 seconds later you say, hold position, you look dumb.
Hold position to Oscar Piastri at his
home race.
First race of the season.
It's like Australia 2024 again.
Extreme rage at 5 a.m.
I wasn't even like rage. I was just like, well, that's so dumb. It makes you look like a horrible CEO, and Andrea Stella, it makes you look like a horrible strategist.
But also, he was told hold positions when he was close enough to Lando to overtake him, and then when they were further apart, they said,
okay, you can race.
Yeah.
You know the rules, let's race. What are the rules? Papaya rules? Like, I will say, and then Liam Lawson came out of the pit lane because, I don't know, he was getting something, and he separated Lando and Max. Did we not think this through, Red Bull? You couldn't have held Liam for a little bit longer? Like, oh my lord. But then the safety car, we also had the issue of, I think it was the second safety car.
The safety car had finished at this point. The safety car comes out again because Alonso, Gasly's.
Can I just defend him for a second? He had the fastest sectors. He was faster than both McLarens. Mind you, he was in traffic. So if he had a clear stretch, he'd be even faster. So sector 1, sector 2, he was the fastest. And then Pierre Gasly, the audacity of the Frenchman, had him in his slipstream and went, oh, let's go over the gravel just a little bit. And Alonso went, boom, into the gravel and into the wall.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that Gasly's slipstream did cause him to spin out and hit the wall. I
know I did just say that George Russell was not blaming Fernando Alonso because he was in his slipstream and that's how George crashed. However, this is Pierre Gasly's fault.
This is the French. We can move on.
No, but I will say I get it, Pierre Gasly. But I will also say Fernando Alonso was following closer to Pierre than George was following Fernando. That hurt. But can we talk about the other Aston Martin for a second?
Lance
Stroll. I never want to hear one more person say 19 of the best drivers in the world and Lance Stroll. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Because you want to know what? You want to know where Lance Stroll started? P13. 1-3. He had no damages. Never got caught in gravel. And created his own strategy that worked. And he got P6. I could cry. We got streaks. Anyways, that's all I have to say. But I will also say, Alex Albon.
That's all you have to say? No, we've got one more thing to talk about at least.
No, I meant about Lance Stroll.
Oh, lap,
Um,
lap 44, the rain comes back. It's a Ferrari shit show.
I
They don't pit
I
them.
I don't know what stream you were watching. I don't know if you were watching on my F1 TV or whatever, but I think it was, oh shoot, it was one of the commentators. I don't even know what stream I was watching. So but they were like, they should pit Lewis. Lewis is asking to be pit. The rain is going to come harder, and before I go, stay out.
Yeah, listen.
And Lewis was just sliding all over the. I was just like, what?
So was
Red
Max.
Bull did the same thing.
It was the,
And
anyway.
that was Max saying we need to change tires before this rain comes. Like, trust me, we need to change. And they were like, no.
Listen,
And then they double stack.
McLaren double stacked.
Oh, we have to talk about that radio from Lando. Because I'm on Lando's side for that.
I don't know what that was, because I got largely.
Lando, so right before the rain, Will came onto the radio and said, Lando, it looks like we're going to get heavy rain in the next 2 laps. And Lando says, okay, so next lap, can we pit for wet tires or intermediate? And they go, we don't want to pit until the rain comes. And Lando goes, that's stupid.
Yes, I remember this now, yeah.
He's like, that's stupid. I might spin out. Don't we want to keep me in the lead with the tires? And they're like, well, we don't know if it's coming. And Lando's like, doesn't it tell you it's coming? Even if it's a little bit of light rain, can we put on intermediate tires? And McLaren went, no. Every team, Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren, were not listening to their drivers.
And
you know who was? Williams.
They double stacked, yeah. There's double stacked McLaren, but the thing we really have to talk about on lap 44.
Do you want me to say it?
Yes.
Oscar Piastri spun out into the grass where he should have been beached. He should have been beached. It should have been a safety car. And the timings literally said PIA out. And he was right in front of a big screen, so everyone thinks he saw that. And he said, no, not gonna do that. And
my man refused to DNF. He didn't.
Rosie's crying. Kudos to him. He reversed and he did really well. And the cheering, and he finished. He got to like P13, P14. Everyone was passing him before he got on to the track, and he finished P19.
No. He came. No, he went down to P19 and finished P9.
That's crazy.
He clawed it back in like
10
laps or something. Yeah,
it's crazy. But that also brings up the last safety car.
Yes.
Which,
2 more DNFs.
Let me tell you, everyone was like, Oscar Piastri is out of his home race. This is horrible. Like, I feel all of a sudden, yellow flag. And everyone's like, uh-oh. Like, what is going on? The camera changes. Not 1, but 2 of the new drivers are out.
Liam Lawson and Gabriel Bortoleto.
Which I felt so bad for Gabriel Bortoleto.
We do have to say, even though, we said that Bortoleto did better than Hülkenberg at the start, like during quali, Hülkenberg did better in the race because he did not DNF.
But I will say, Gabriel Bortoleto, from what I can tell on his onboard, which, reminder, I'm not a driver and I'm not an engineer, but it did seem like he just happened to hit water where there was just too much standing water and he had no control. Like, that car was out of control. Liam Lawson, however, did hit the gravel. They didn't show his onboard, so I don't know if somebody pushed him into I don't know why they were focused on Gabriel Bortoleto and not Liam Lawson. So there's that. But Gabriel Bortoleto seems to be out of control. But basically it wasn't, I think it's McLaren and Mercedes and Ferrari were the only three to finish with both drivers.
Which is insane.
Oh no, wait, and Haas, but they were last, so
yeah.
But that was exciting.
It was what a hell of a race to start.
I will say we have to talk about the drivers that impressed us, and I'm going to say Kimi Antonelli.
I think
P4,
we have the same three. I think we have the same impressive top three.
Hulkenberg.
Oh, okay.
And Alex Albon.
Okay, so my notable drivers of the race are Antonelli, Albon, and Stroll. I'm not necessarily shocked that he is, like, up there. And I think I was more shocked they didn't go off even one time, and like basically at everyone else.
So clean.
Yeah,
they never showed him and George. They never showed those two drivers ever.
George was hardly shown at all, and then he was on the podium.
Yeah, George was not shown, but that's because he had such a good drive that they were like, okay, we can't. It's like Max in 2023 where they're like, okay, well, we can't show Max. He's just flying. Like, he's got nothing in between him. He's literally saying, I should have brought a pillow. But I feel like Lance and George were deserving of driver of the day.
I think Alex was as well.
I voted for Alex.
Yeah, I voted.
No, I voted for Oscar. I meant to vote for Alex and I hit Oscar.
That
by accident. But I'm fine with that.
But Albon dragged that Williams to P5. I mean, Antonelli
with no damage.
Antonelli did originally get a penalty, but then that was reversed after
What was the penalty for? Safety car?
I think it would, impede something under the safety car infringement. But
which I just don't understand. Which I know Mercedes definitely went back to them and said, okay, well, Alex, Fernando, Charles, and someone else had a safety car infringement, and you said no further action because it's raining. Like, how were they supposed to know? So why'd you give Kimi it? Which is why I think it probably was taken away. Yeah. But he was supposed to be P5, and he moved up to P4 again. But driving and finishing for your first ever F1 race, P4?
Mind you, he qualified, 16th? So he went from 16th to P4 on his first Formula 1 race.
Also, I will say, there was like this stat, I don't know where the stat is, I should have saved it, but it was like, he is in the top 5 F1 drivers that were the best finishing spots as a rookie. Mark Webber was on it. So was Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton.
Antonelli's got 2 more races to become the youngest ever race winner. I mean, I feel like
take it away.
Max might have it out for him if he does take
Max Verstappen. Well, did you see that video of Max going around?
Yes, when they take Antonelli away from him.
It's like, wait a minute, where are you I was like, such a mother hen. A mother hen.
Talking to him.
I also feel like, though, Max is very good with the rookies in the sense of, like, he makes sure they're welcomed and they're okay and they're doing well and checks in with them, because when he was a rookie, no one did that for him except Sebastian Vettel. That's it. Everybody else was like, he's too aggressive. He's driving like erratically, which I mean he was.
Listen, Mercedes were busy. Okay? They have their own problems.
Max was 100% making sure that every rookie felt welcomed. Also, okay, not to bring up Sebastian Vettel, but Max Verstappen had an interview recently, and he goes, I talked to Seb after almost every race.
You know what we haven't done? We haven't talked about the podium yet.
Yeah, let's talk about the podium. Lando Norris won. He also got fastest lap. He also got driver of the day.
Yeah. Although he only 20%.
McLaren did not get fastest pit stop. Do you know who got fastest pit stop?
Who?
Ferrari.
So
that should be a point.
I actually didn't look because
yeah,
I don't know, man.
But I will say Lando. Actually, no, I'm not gonna say that because Lando, in his post-race interview, they were like, "Okay, the car looks really good. Like, you had a really fast car," and he's like, "Why is everyone just asking about the car? I was a good driver." I go, "Dude, you had 5 incidents where you were off the track."
But also, right, even if you are a good driver, the car is significant.
Yeah.
Like, Ben
I will also say
good
that's
in the Ferrari, but bad in the Haas. And he hasn't changed, but the car did.
And I will also say it really shows championship mentality. And like I feel like Lando was told by McLaren that it's not the car, it has to be the driver to be the champion. Whereas Max in 2023, when he had that insane car that was faster than anything else, like, and it was the best car ever, probably. He genuinely was like, "Yeah, I had a really good drive today, but like, I don't think I would be that good if it wasn't for the car." Like,
Lewis knew when his car was fast. Max knew when his car was fast.
It doesn't make you. It doesn't make you any less worthy of a championship with a fast car.
If you admit that your car is fast, which it is.
Which I feel like, I know it's not. It's probably someone probably told Lando sometime down the road that if you have a fast car, it doesn't count. Or maybe he was on the internet with 2023 where everyone's like, Max just won because of the car. And he's like, that's not what I want. That's all I need. But I do feel like you can admit it. He did drive very well, but he also had help from the car.
I think to refuse to admit that your car is
immature
is to refuse to acknowledge the work that your team have put in to the car.
It's kind of acknowledging that it's a team sport and it's a solo sport.
I would be pissed off if I was a McLaren mechanic, engineer, whoever.
Oh, I'd tweak something.
Designed and put the car together and, spent the past 3 months slaving away at this car for him to turn around and be like, yeah, it's nothing to do with the car, it's all me.
And I wish people, because I feel like people on the internet who are saying like, oh, Lando really needs to acknowledge the car. Everyone's like, that's not true. Like, he was such a good drive. We're not saying it wasn't a good drive, but you do need to acknowledge when you have a good car.
Otherwise,
and I'm not just saying, oh, championship wise, like Fernando Alonso has a good car compared to 2024.
Yeah.
Okay. And they were like, you drove beautifully in qualifying. And he goes, well, the car's better. The car's good and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to acknowledge the people who worked on this car, that you wouldn't have this car without them. At least that's what I'm saying. I mean, probably some people are like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. He can't say that. He wouldn't have won without that car. People said it about Max in 2023. Like, people are going to say it. But you also have to acknowledge that it's a team sport.
I just, like...
Anyways, P1, Lando Norris. P2, Max Verstappen. I do feel like Max is falling a little bit from grace, unfortunately. He was almost a second slower.
P3! George Russell!
George Russell. Which, once again, nobody focused on him and he got a podium.
So it's so funny to me that Max and George were on the podium after their beef last season and through the winter break, and then they're on the podium together. Very funny.
Yeah. We also have to talk about Alex Albon.
My goat.
Because he I don't understand. Like, I do understand he's a good driver, but I don't understand how Williams built this car
Where did they get the money
and,
from?
and made it that good that quickly.
Now, I would say for McLaren and Red Bull have a problem, and it's Alex Albon.
That quote haunts me.
But this time,
You know what's really funny is that Williams has the two rejected drivers. Red Bull has a problem, and it seems to be Alex Albon. And Ferrari won, but with the wrong car.
listen, they said that because Charles was
Anyways,
second
moving
in
on.
the
Blah blah
championship.
blah.
Okay,
Blah blah blah.
he was fighting for the
It
championship.
doesn't matter. Imagine if McLaren, if somebody said that about Oscar Piastri.
Listen, they could be dead. I don't give a fuck.
Exactly. We also have to talk about Hulkenberg. And I think that's it. That's all we have to talk about. Which is he scored more points for Sauber in
La
this
la la
first
la
race
la 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 la
than
la la la.
they had all last year. And I'm not saying that was a driver issue because I do feel like Bottas and Joe in the first half of the season were basically in those little kiddie cars where you have to run with your feet.
Yeah.
So it's not a fair comparison. But I'm just saying something happened with Sauber. Who knows? I don't know, but it's impressive.
Can I say, even though it's a shit show, you know what? Family finished together.
I will also say Lewis Hamilton finishing 10th. I know it's not his fault, but seeing how many people expected him to finish in the top 5 in Ferrari for the first race,
Very
I'm like,
funny.
dude.
Very funny. Welcome to.
But I will say, he got a point, which is more than I was expecting from his first race at Ferrari. Not because he's a bad driver, but because Ferrari's strategy is non-existent.
Yeah. And what? You know, Lewis has only finished outside the points a handful of times in his entire career, which is.
Do you know that Max Verstappen, I think it's a stat like at 23, he went into the points in Formula 1.
And he hasn't come out.
And he hasn't come out.
Yeah, I don't need to think about that.
That's crazy. Also, the stat where Max Verstappen has been leading the championship for like 1,800 something days has come to an end.
Yes. As it stands, also I'd like to say these drivers do not give a fuck about my fantasy team. Okay.
Rosie, my second team is at -8. -8.
Okay. So if you're an F1 driver and you're watching this, please take my fantasy team into account, please. Okay.
Wait, before we finish, let me tell you, I'm gonna talk to them directly. Let me just pull it up. Teammate, my second team, done for. We're done for. Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Alex Albon, Lance Stroll, and Carlos Sainz. Do I have words? China? That's my fantasy. So in China, it better be 1 through 5. Piastri, Alonso, Albon, Stroll, Sainz. I got how many points? I don't even know.
Heavy on that. Although
64.
Yeah, but you're winning our F1 jackpot, so
that's true. I am. I don't know how. Yes, I do. I have Lando Norris.
Although so at the end of race 1, Lando Norris is leading the World Championship, and McLaren and Mercedes are both on 27 points for the constructors.
Okay, I'm not going to comment on that, but I am. I don't really care about the championship contender because none of my drivers will be up there. That's a lie, Maxwell. But Lance Stroll P6 above both Ferraris. Also, Aston Martin, Williams, and Sauber above Ferrari. I'm really shooting for 2 of those, is Williams and Aston Martin. Sauber, I just need Gabriel Bortoleto to have a good enough team to prove that he's actually a good driver, because he did so well in F2.
Ferrari will claw it back though, whereas Sauber are unlikely to have. Yeah.
Williams and Aston Martin, though, do seem to be crawling up.
Ferrari
Especially
just
Aston Martin.
clearly have no idea what to do in the rain.
Yeah. All right. That's it for Australia. This coming week is the Chinese Grand Prix, which is in Shanghai. It's at 3 a.m. for me, so I will not be watching live.
It's at 7 a.m. for me, so I think I will.
We will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.